Hey, it's the Fit Gear Hunter, and today I want to break down the age-old question in today's market for what watch should I consider getting if I'm doing CrossFit or high-intensity interval training. So the whole YouTube channel, Fit Gear Hunter, and the website associated with it, fitgearhunter.com, is for the simple purpose of trying to figure out from all the devices on the market today, which ones provide the most relevant content or analytics for CrossFit training specifically. So when I first started this, there were so many reviews or videos for running that tracked the GPS accuracy or cycling or swimming, but didn't track relevant information for CrossFit training. And so what I've tried to do at the outset of this whole channel is just to break down information that I think is beneficial and useful when trying to figure out a watch for the CrossFit community or the high intensity interval training community. That includes Orange Theory or some of the other gyms that are out there that do super focused, hard, intense workouts for a shorter period of time. And I apologize because today I'm in my sort of quasi home studio because I wanted to get some of this content out and didn't have time to go by the box to try to shoot it. This is a brief excerpt just because I forgot to mention the tenet or the overview of this video. We're going to talk at length about the elements that are pertinent to CrossFit training and just talk face-to-face at length in that regard. And then we're going to look at hands-on of the device for the second half or the latter part. We're going to look at what some of the metrics look like on watches and what some of the metrics look like on the apps themselves. So what is it, what we do in the CrossFit training world or high intensity interval training? Typically you have 5 or 6 days a week that you go in for a 1-hour intense class. And for CrossFit, that means typically some heavy lifting and some Olympic lifting or some skill work, followed by an intense shorter workout, whether it's an EMOM or an AMRAP, rounds per time, but it's just a short burst Metcon that's ranging from maybe 10 to 40 minutes in time. So you're heavy lifting, you're spiking your heart rate there, and then you go in for a purely focused high intensity period of time for the work. And so the bigger question is, how do I translate, tracking some of my intensity into growing and developing my fitness? And are there devices that will actually break down some of that for us? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So you look at the broad spectrum of the market itself, and I apologize for the lighting. You look at the broad spectrum, you have AMOLED watches and transflective watches. So an AMOLED watch is simply like an Apple Watch type of a screen. This is a Suunto 7. And then you have a transflective watch. So this is the, Garmin Fenix 6. So you have different types of technology when it comes to the watch face. Big, bright, and beautiful, and then just sort of robust and strong. So you have two basic types there, but you have a laundry list of different providers. See the Apple Watch 6, the Samsung Galaxy Watch 3. You have Fossil, it's got its own, smartwatch. Fitbit's got a whole line of watches. the TicWatch Pro 3. You have another of smaller or outside manufacturers, Xiaomi, Amazfit, Huawei, Honor, that are providing, a bunch of different watch options on the market. And then you have some primary sports players, Garmin, Coros, Polar, and Suunto. Even some off-brand like Whoop, sort of as a primary content provider for tracking. But all of these different types, they don't just break down by the type of watch face, they break down by the content that they provide for training and development. So I break all of these different watches down to two categories. One, those that track in-depth analysis from the workout exertion to recovery time to load tracking over time to in-depth wellness, sleep, stress, those types of things, and those that do not track those things. The primary ones, the primary components being the exertion level, evaluation of the workout, the recovery time, and load tracking over time. If they do not include those things, in my opinion, they are off the list of watches that are worthwhile to consider if you're really wanting to do a CrossFit heavy training program. So in those two types of watches, the AMOLED scene unfortunately is off the list because currently there is not an AMOLED watch that offers in-depth training analysis and workout analysis. And when I say workout analysis, what does that mean? Well, so you go to the regular Fossil or you go to the regular Fitbit or Samsung Galaxy Watch or the Apple Watch. You put it on, you go do your workout. Now, if you're doing a GPS, maybe you'll see a little map course. But let's say we're just doing CrossFit or high intensity interval training. What are the primary things it tells us? Heart rate, calories burned, maybe steps, maybe respiration, but not really. So heart rate and calories burned. So that doesn't tell us anything. So if I'm in the, this peak zone for 2 minutes and then this low level zone for 50 minutes, what does that mean for my fitness development? If I'm in the peak zone for 20 minutes, or if I'm in the low zone only for 3 hours, what does that mean? It doesn't translate into an analysis that's content worthwhile for looking at our fitness and how much recovery we might need and how our fitness might be improving. So all of the main watches, the Apple Watch 6, the Fitbit, the Samsung Galaxy Watch 3, all the other sort of off-brands, the Xiaomi, Amazfit, Huawei, TicWatch, they don't offer the in-depth analysis. Actually, Huawei does offer in-depth analysis, but doesn't connect to a chest strap, so therefore heart rate accuracy is off. Therefore, you don't get proper analytics, so the analytics aren't worthwhile. So it breaks down to 4 main players that provide the primary content pieces: Garmin, Coros, Suunto, and Polar. So let's talk about what those primary content pieces are that you go to look at when you go to look for a workout. So number 1 is workout accuracy. And when it comes down to workout accuracy, if you're doing high intensity interval training, we're not looking for a GPS file. We're not looking for the right smooth curves around bends. When you're out on a run or the cycling, you're looking for heart rate accuracy. So all the watches have to connect to a chest strap. The one reason I do not recommend Whoop as a primary solution, because it is primarily focused or targeted on CrossFit, is that the heart rate accuracy on the wrist is not 100%. It's basically like in the 60% range. So 40% of your highest intensity or your fluctuation and change in time. So it does not pick up because it's an optical heart rate, and a lot of wrist flex watches just fail. So when you're doing, short burst and then crash, and short burst, you're doing an EMOM, it doesn't track those peaks, and so it's missing the intensity, so it doesn't flow through to correct analytics. So that's why it's off the table. So anything that doesn't connect to a chest strap can't give true accuracy when you're slinging a barbell or a kettlebell or doing pull-ups. You're doing all these different things to focus on the wrist. You have to have accurate heart rate tracking in order, so you have to connect to a chest strap. So Garmin and Coros will connect to a Bluetooth chest strap or an Ant Plus chest strap. Polar will connect to a Bluetooth, as well as Suunto obviously will connect to a Bluetooth. So they all give you different sets of data. They can all give you, some 4, 5, or 6, or even 8 on, the Garmin Fenix 6X give you units of data. So that's sort of helpful. They all provide like a button press for tracking your rounds for time. So if you want to track your time per round or just your overall rounds per time, what does it mean when you say workout analytics? So tracking the exertion. So in the Garmin and the Coros and the Suunto world, they'll track it by something called training effect. And so it's an evaluation of how hard your body worked over that period of time, from a 0 to a 5. So if you're in that 2 to 3 range, your fitness is maintaining. If you're in 3 to 4, it's really working to better your fitness. 4 to 5, and then on 4 to 5 is overexertion. In the Polar world, it's called cardio load, which is sort of a translation of what they call EPOC. EPOC is the excess post oxygen consumption. So how hard your body worked in a workout will determine how much oxygen and how much period of time you'll need to recover. Therefore, it sort of flows back and it shows how much exertion you did. So Suunto will actually give you both of those variables, will only give you the training effect just from a singular number format. Coros and Garmin will give you the aerobic training effect and the anaerobic training effect. So your sprint, strength, short burst type of strength growth versus just the aerobic strength growth. So that's how they break down the analytics. When you look at Garmin though, big caveat here, not all the family in Garmin will provide those analytics. It's actually not the Venue, not the Vivo Active series. None of those will provide the training analytics. You have to go with Forerunner, and specifically I take the 645 out of that bucket because it's got an old heart rate sensor. It doesn't have all the stress tracking and wellness tracking, so that's just out. So you got the 245, 745, 945, and Fenix 6 series. So those are the ones that track the training evaluation or the exertion level of the workout. So they tell you how hard you worked in that workout, and that is fundamentally important because it flows through to what we're talking about next. Polar, the whole family does it except for the Unite. Unite doesn't track the intensity of the workouts. Coros, they all do it. Suunto, the 5 and 9 do it, and maybe the 3 does it, but I didn't have a chance to look that up. But you want to look for, the training effect, the training effect, the training effect. So what happens after the workout? Well, the recovery time needed. So all of these fitness tracking watches, they don't give you just a heart rate graph. They'll tell you how hard you worked in the workout, and then they'll tell you how much you should probably take off to recover. So how much recovery time is needed. So Coros has recovery time. Polar doesn't quite have recovery time. There's a workaround. but it's not worth getting into on this video. Suunto has absolute recovery time after the workout, and Garmin has now a new better version of recovery time where they'll take into account your stress level through the day, the quality of sleep that you got, and the workout exertion to tell you you should probably take this much time before your next really hard workout. And if you rested a lot that whole day and you did nothing, it'll say, well, you cut down your recovery time, you can go hard again sooner. And the opposite is true if you overdo it. The next aspect that we want to look for in a watch that's relevant for CrossFit training is load or volume tracking and how it relates to our current fitness level. So again, all these other watches, the Samsung Galaxy Watch 3, Apple Watch 6, Fitbit, they just track the individual workouts, but they don't really tell you other than like how many minutes you worked out that week. But did you work out for 3 hours at an intense level, or do you work out at 30 minutes for intense level? Do you work out at 3 hours at a super lazy level? Well, you know, 3 hours seems like a lot, but if it was just sort of like a casual walk, it didn't build your fitness. So all those watches are off the table. So we want a watch that will track our load and volume individually with like looking at the level of exertion over a longer period of time. So Coros provides load tracking. It's what all these watches tend to call it, but it doesn't do it great. So the Coros watch will track it, but it just looks like you worked out today, you didn't work out today, you worked out today. So it's not building a load accurately over time. But Polar and Garmin do it best. Suunto, unfortunately, is out of it as well because Suunto will just track your training log. So you worked out this many minutes this week, and so you have to have your own awareness of, okay, in that workout all over these course of these minutes, I knew I was pushing myself extra hard. Polar and Garmin. So Polar does it somewhat where they're just tracking your 7-day average of exertion, how much exertion over the last 7 days, how much intensity over 28 days, you know, so is the last 7 days pushing yourself harder than you have on average the last 28 days, therefore pulling your exercise, your fitness level higher. Garmin does much the same, and in some of their higher watches, the 745, 945, and Fenix 6 series, they'll give you load types. So you did this kind of, you did a highly aerobic load, or a lowly aerobic load, or a more intense anaerobic load from that particular workout, but they'll still just give you a load number and a range. So your fitness level is here. This is what your training's been like. Here's the range you want to stay in to maintain, and if you want to push it higher, you push your load up over the course of a prolonged period of time. But they'll track your load over 7 days. In simple math, they're just saying, is your exertion level, not just the amount of time you worked out, but your exertion level in those workouts enough to push your fitness higher based on what you've been doing in the past. And that is useful information. They'll tell you if you're undertraining, maintaining, positively growing your training, or overtraining. Next, wellness aspects. So what other factors flow into what you might need to recover and to be able to hit the next workout really hard? Stress tracking. A lot, not all these devices do stress tracking. It's actually not in the Coros and it's not in the Polar, but stress tracking is in the Garmin and the Suunto. Specifically those ones that I mentioned. They'll track your heart rate variability over time, whether you had a high stress day or a low stress day, and it'll flow through to a calculation. Suunto calls it resources, Garmin calls it body battery. So how much energy reserves you have. So if you're super stressed, you're pretty depleted, you need more sleep, you need more recovery, you need more relaxation to be able to be prepared for next day's workout. Super relevant. Even in those tracking, the body battery itself, it'll tell you when you're about to get sick. 12 hours before you're sick, your body battery is just not regenerating. You could take a nap, your body battery's not regenerating, and then you get sick. And then your body battery stays flatlined until you start to recover, and you can see when your body's starting to feel better because your body battery starts to regenerate just off the heart rate variability tracking. Sleep tracking. Everybody does sleep tracking, and some of these do it a little bit better. So Suunto does a sleep analysis, but doesn't give you a quality sleep score. It says a quality of sleep, but it doesn't give you analytics, like deeper analytics. It will tell you the stages, but it doesn't break it down into higher level analytics. Coros actually looks even more bland. They'll give you some of the stages, but the graph is a blur and it's not very useful information. Garmin is the next up. They do a good job in showing you the movement throughout the sleep. You can track your pulse ox, which Garmin is the only one of these versions that'll use pulse ox or oxygen level tracking in your sleep to show you that as a stat, and your respiration while you're sleeping as a stat. So useful information, but they're using their own algorithm and they don't provide a sleep score. So in the 945, 745, 245, that's Garmin's algorithm. In the Fenix 6, it's first beat algorithm, which just means that they're giving a sleep score, much better accuracy on the analytics for the sleep, compared to the other ones that are available. And then the best right now is Polar. So Polar will track your sleep. They'll give you the analytics for the sleep, how it compares to your moving averages, and a sleep score. Sleep score is useful information. If I slept 50 minutes in deep sleep, or 5 hours in deep sleep, or 5 hours in REM sleep, or 5 minutes in REM sleep, what does that mean? Well, I want a score. So Polar, the Garmin Fenix 6 will give you a score, and it'll eventually come to the 945 and 245 and 745. They're slated to have it next. But Polar will give you a score, but they'll couple it with something they call the autonomic nervous system regeneration score. So how did your heart rate variability, your breathing rate, and the beat-to-beat intervals track last night compared to the last 28 days of tracking? That's useful information. These two scores will come together and say, you are recovered, you are ready to hit the next workout, or you are compromised, you're very poor, you need to take some time off of training because your sleep is so bad. The bad thing, or the caveat with Polar's tracking, is they only track 4 hours a night for those more in-depth sleep analytics. So it's only a 4-hour window of time. So it's not, you have to take it with a grain of salt because it's not tracking those analytics over the whole period of sleep. So sleep tracking, super useful information, super useful aspects. So what are the other extras? Those are the primary things: accuracy and in-depth of the workout, workout analysis, exertion levels, recovery time projections or recommendations, and then load tracking over time. Those are the things that will help you know if you're peaking, you're growing, you're pushing your fitness to a higher level, or if you're overdoing it and you're facing injury and need to watch out. Extra perks, some of them will do different fitness tests. Garmin, Coros, Suunto, you actually have to go for a 15-minute run or a 10-minute run or a 5-minute run or something like that, and a GPS using their running, the running sport profile to get a VO2 max, which is a sort of a snapshot of your fitness. Polar's got a unique one. You just put on the watch, you lay down for 3 minutes, and it'll track your heart, have you stand up, I think, for halfway through that. But it'll tell you your fitness level through that metric, which for us doing CrossFit that don't run a lot, we're not running consistently, our mechanics of our body are not functionally used to running, so it's not always a great test of our VO2 max or our fitness level. Polar does that differently. Garmin has got intricate maps. If you go with the 945 or the Fenix 6 series and the Pro Fenix 6 series, you're getting an intricate level of maps. You can see where you are, you can see a trail, you can go track down other trailheads if that's important to you, as well as music. Garmin's the only one that provides music, and you can even connect to Spotify, and you can download playlists, so you don't even have to have your phone to listen to a Spotify playlist. Coros has the champion battery life. They can go about 2 or 3 times longer than everybody else. Garmin's the second longest, and then Polar and Suunto alongside that. Screen quality. Polar's the most dim. They still have some work to do on the quality of their backlight. When you do a wrist raise, it's still frustrating. That to me is a problem because it's super dim. Suunto has some dim, adjustments to the backlight you can do. Coros has just got one backlight, and unfortunately that extends all the way to the most expensive watch that is just sort of a mid-level, and it's not even the highest level of those transflectives that we talked about in the beginning. And then Garmin is the best, has the most adjustability, and has the brightest of the transflected backlights. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at some of the watches, some of the features of all these different feature sets on the watch, and then some on the app, so you have an idea of what types of things you're looking for. But this is the point of the video, just things to look for, things to be aware of, and where to look to find devices that are relative to CrossFit or high-intensity interval training. Thanks so much for watching.
Okay, so what do you see? So these are just a few samples of primary watches. This is an AMOLED watch, just so you can see the screen quality difference. It is about 10 times brighter off of AMOLED versus a transflective, just so that you have some awareness. And here's the more dim Polar Vantage V that we talked about. So one day we will hopefully have the analytics on a transflective watch, but for now we're limited to these two basics. So what we're going to do is we're just going to look at some of the stats we talked about in the video as you see it on the watch. So in the watch itself, you basically will just go into a workout. You'll see 4 levels of information. You can get even more if you wanted to break it down into finer detail. What do you get after the workout? So we can just sort of look at what the last workout stats look like, just so that you have some awareness. So here's the workout from this morning, and you go into it and you'll see, a breakdown of all the stats. You can see the training effect. This is what we talked about. So the aerobic impact and the anaerobic, again, those are a scale of 0 to 5. So that's growing the aerobic, and some on the anaerobic with a load score calculation on the bottom. You see the overall large version of it and just the training effect itself. You can go into, you can see all stats, but those are the primary workout analytics that we're looking for. Again, on the Garmin system, we we'll go into training status to see our overall fitness development. So you see your training load over time. This is where you see, like how much your accumulation is building with that optimal range for growth in the middle. And you can see here, because this is the 6, you can see different load accumulation, different types of load impact. And then there's the recovery time left. So this is where you track in the watch how much recovery time left since you last, worked out. Outside of the training effect, we looked at, some of the other beneficial aspects. So that was the training load. We looked at some of the training effect or the workout exertion analysis from the workout itself, as well as the recovery time. So here you can see, some of the wellness aspects. This is your stress level throughout the day. So it was not stressed during sleep and stressed throughout the day. And again, you can see the impact of that on your body battery or your internal resources over time. So this is one of the unique features to Garmin and to Suunto. So we're just looking at it on the Garmin. Garmin, the Fenix 6 series, and it'll eventually come to the 945 and 745. You can get a sleep score, sleep analysis, where they give you sort of a chart format and a breakdown of the in-depth parts of the sleep and the sleep stages with the recommendation for how your sleep impacted you. So that's how it looks when you look at it on the Garmin system, specifically on the Fenix 6. So here's the Polar Vantage V, and right here on the front page we have the training load, which is one of the primary load pieces. So you can see it's productive. Your strain, 64, is your average 7-day strain, so your cardio load on an average daily basis over your 28-day load. And then you can see that it's saying you've been progressively training, which should be improving your fitness, that I'm staying above my 28-day average, so I'm pushing my productivity higher. So additionally, on the Polar system, you can see aspects, or you can see what it looks like after a session. We'll show you how Polar sort of calculates the impact of the workout overall. There's the workout from earlier today. You can see the heart rate, but there again, you see the cardio load. That's your exertion score, your epoch, I believe, through the Polar system. Obviously, you got heart rate zones. That's sort of common to a lot of devices, but what's not common is this training load impact, and then obviously how that flows into your training development load over time. So how it works, there. So this is the sleep analysis. So their Polar sort of combines somewhat of the body battery heart rate variability sleep analysis alongside the sleep score itself. So you can see these two numbers come into a nightly recharge. So, I have some okay regeneration through the night, and you can go into the sleep and see some of the floating stats across a bunch of different variables, or you can go into the autonomic nervous system recharge and you can see the stats there like we talked about in the video. So again, this is how you track your wellness in the Polar ecosystem versus the Garmin. So the Coros is similar, although the sleep is more bland. You can see the same workout analytics, the aerobic and anaerobic training effect, as well as the recovery time. Suunto has just training effect, but also will show the epoch, as well as the recovery time, as well as the resources like the body battery was in the Garmin family. And that's just on the Suunto 5 and 9. So let's go into the apps of all the primary carriers and take a look at what we see there. Okay, so we'll start with the Coros system. You can see that there's not a lot of detail here, as my last workouts were quite a bit ago, but when you go into a workout history, you can see not just the heart rate graphs, but you can see the training effect. So there's that aerobic training effect and the anaerobic in the middle there. And the watch itself will actually be where you could find the recovery time from the workouts. So post-workouts, you have the recovery time that's on the watch itself in what they call the AI trainer. And then you basically would go into training load here and to scroll back. So there's where it does not build a proper accumulation of a training load over time. You just see that it spikes up and then spikes down, then spikes up and then spikes down. And then secondly, if you wanted to sleep, so we would have to go pretty far back into the year, into the month, and see how the sleep looks there. And that's what a sleep looks like in the Coros app. So not a lot of great visual help, and they don't track stress tracking, as well as they don't track nighttime pulse ox, although most of their watches or a couple of their watches have pulse ox tracking. So Then we can go into, next up would be like the Suunto. So you can look at the workout from today. Here you can see in the middle of the page, the training effect in that middle right side, 3.4. That's again that scale of 0 to 5. And you see the epoch of 69. That's the same sort of metric that Polar takes. And then the recovery time of 12 hours. You can see the heart rate zones as well, obviously. So you get a lot of those primary training metrics in the app. And then the recovery time is not in the app, it lives in the watch. And the current watch I've been using doesn't have the resources or that all-day stress tracking. So unfortunately, in the logbook, we can't see our stress tracking. Although in the 9 and the 5 on the app, you would see your resources depleting from your stress throughout the day. And we go from there. The other thing you could see is your sleep score. Here you can just look at some of the sleep over, this one period of time. So in this one night's sleep, you could see I got 9 hours, which was, incredible. It's over my goal point, just way off the average, but 85%. So it does have a quality score with some very basic metrics, just the deep sleep total time. So you don't get a lot of in-depth metrics, although you do get the quality score, which is helpful. So that's what you see in the Suunto world. And then we'll go to the Polar world. So this is a snapshot of the day. We'll start in the recovery side. So this is that nightly recharge with the autonomic nervous system on the left, the sleep charge on the right. And so you can go into the sleep and you can see all the stats for the sleep and the regeneration recovery there. And you can go into the autonomic nervous system and you can see, it takes the beat to beat interval average, the heart rate variability and breathing rate into account. And then again, you can also see that it's just really tracking that 4-hour period. So if you look across the whole night of sleep, it's just got bars and a white section for the 4-hour period that is tracking the analytics for. And then we can go into our training plan. So we'll look at just the workout from today. This is sort of the summary of stats that you get. And right in the middle here is the Training Load Pro, which is that evaluation of impact. It's called the TRIMP, and the TRIMP is a different metric or a different summarization of a different metric, but it's still a load calculation for the workout. Obviously, this was done off a chest strap, so you don't get all of the big, pretty, bars of color like you would in some of the others, because I was using a chest strap with Polar Beat, and that's why I have the recovery time actually in the middle there. It's only because I use a chest strap connected with Polar Beat, and that flowed over to Polar Flow. So that's what the Polar looks like. And then if you go into the training load over time, so you can see your load building over a course of a long period of time. And they even have it to where you can see it over a prolonged section of time. So each of these the purple line is your average for the last 7 days, and the blue line is your overall tolerance over 28 days. And so you can see periods where you're growing your fitness, and then periods where you're maintaining your fitness, and those red lines are the intensity of the workout for that particular day. So they do a really nice job with tracking your load over time. And then last, we'll look at the Garmin family, and you can look at a workout here. The landing page for the workout, just a little bit simple, but here in the primary page, you can see the training effect, the 3.2 and the 2.1 on the aerobic and anaerobic. You got the heart rate stats down below. Because I'm using a Fenix 6, you have respiration rate and temperature tracking in the workout itself. But the main thing we're looking for is that training effect, which does come with the 245, 745, 945, and Fenix 6 series, because that's what evaluates the intensity of the workout. You cannot find recovery time in the app itself. It only lives in the watch. So then we want to look at our training over time. We go into training effect, not training effect, you go into training status. I haven't done a couple of runs, and Garmin requires you to do a couple runs for their status to populate. But you can see the load over time and then the 7-day load. So I'm in an optimal range. So that means I'm sort of growing my fitness sort of at a steady rate. So it's steadily improving because I'm in the green bars, and the overall optimally training over time. So that's how you see those stats. And then you go back into the main page, and there's the stress and the impact on the body, what they call the body battery. So I'm my body battery is at 47%, and it only regenerated to about 73% because I only got 5 hours of sleep. So I did not regenerate that much, and the day has worn me down that much. But you can see the orange bars for the periods of stress. So that's how the battery works. And then sleep has, all those same statistics. I do like you can see movement tracking as well as your pulse ox throughout the night, if I can get it to move, as well as your respiration throughout the night. So you can see the average breaths per minute, and you can get those in bigger fields here. So that is the different families of primary providers that you should consider, in my opinion, for tracking your CrossFit or high intensity interval training. As always, please give this a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content. It really helps the channel and it really means a lot. Thanks so much for watching.